I never thought I'd find myself suing an HOA, but here I am dealing with the kind of madness you wouldn't believe unless you saw it yourself. I'm Caleb Drummond, and I've spent most of my life on this land, working at learning its secrets, knowing every inch like the back of my hand. My grandfather built the dam back in 1952, a sturdy structure made from compacted earth and limestone he quarried from Buncombe County. It's always done its job impounding Drum Creek for agricultural use. My father and I managed the gates, and I continued the tradition. I left for a 16-month contract out in the Pacific Northwest doing forestry work. When I left, the land was as it always had been, a creek floodplain, brushy, irregular, and natural. When I came back, though, everything had changed. There was a park where the creek once ran wild, a parking lot with fresh white lines, 2 benches, and a sign that read, Ridgeline Estates Nature Preserve. None of this was discussed with me. None of it was authorized. It hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just some public space. It was my land. The HOA had decided that my drainage corridor was perfect for a park, and they took it upon themselves to grade, pave, and landscape it all without asking. I stood there staring at the benches, sitting where the creek should have been, feeling like everything I knew about my own land was slipping away. I called my attorney right then and there. The wheels of justice began to turn. But first I had to get the word out. I didn't need anyone else to think I was crazy for standing up to this HOA. So I posted about it, told everyone about the ridiculousness of the situation. But before I could get that post up, I had to drive down the gravel road that had always been a part of my family's property. The sound of tires crunching over packed limestone was familiar to me, like a song I had known all my life. The trees formed an arch overhead, the road winding through them in a way that only old roads can. This had been my father's road, my grandfather's road, and now it was mine. Every trip I made down that road carried with it the weight of years of family history. In order, and he was worried. Every couple in order, and he was worried. Every couple of weeks he'd text me with updates. But when the messages started becoming more frequent, I knew something was wrong. They're grading your east field, he texted, and later, there's a sign now. That's when I knew it was real. They had done something to my land. When I finally came home and drove down that familiar road, I saw it. The HOA's fence, which had marked the boundary for years, was gone. They had moved it, pushing it back about 80 feet and closing a section of my property. I parked and got out, my heart sinking. I could see the parking area they'd built, the asphalt glistening in the winter light, the grass neatly trimmed, and the walking path they'd put in. All of it on my land. I couldn't believe it. The property that had been in my family for generations was now a park. The floodplain, the creek, the land I had worked with my father, the land I had grown up on, was no longer mine in the way I'd always known. They'd turned it into a public space, and they didn't have the decency to even ask. I walked through the park seeing it for what it was, a pristine, manicured space that used to be home to wild, untamed nature. The benches, the paved paths, the sign that told people to stay on the trail, it all made my stomach turn. It was as though the land had been turned into something that wasn't mine anymore. And that's when I knew I had to do something about it. I called my lawyer again, Sylvia Crane. She'd been handling the property matters for years since my father passed. I gave her the rundown. She didn't hesitate. She told me we needed a surveyor, and we needed to document everything. No stone could be left unturned. I had to know exactly what had happened to my land, and I had to have the evidence to prove it. Burl had already started documenting everything, taking photos of the construction as it happened, the grading, the parking lot, the footbridges in my creek. He'd even taken the time to get an official receipt when he filed a complaint with the county. By the time I got back, he had over 200 photos, all of it documented. All of it proof that the HOA had taken my land without permission. But I wasn't just going to let this slide. I called the HOA's president, Warren Gill. I told him what had happened, but he wasn't having it. He tried to downplay the whole thing, saying that the land had been unused, that they were just improving it for the community. I didn't care about his excuses. I told him flat out, you built a park in my floodplain on my land. You did it without asking, and now you're going to pay for it. It wasn't just about the park anymore. It was about the principle of it all. They had come into my world, taken what wasn't theirs, and acted as if they had every right to do it. I had to fight back, and so I did. We filed a lawsuit. We went after the HOA for trespassing, for unauthorized floodplain development, for everything they had done wrong. We also went after them for the costs of remediation. It wasn't just about restoring the land. It was about making them pay for their actions, for the money they had spent, the damage they'd caused, and the way they had ignored the law. But then, just as I thought we had them cornered, something unexpected happened. The HOA decided to play hardball. They tried to claim that the land had been theirs all along, that they had been good stewards of the property. They even tried to get out of paying for the damages, claiming that the park was a community asset and that the residents would suffer if it was torn down. That's when the twist came. Sylvia dug deeper, and we discovered that Warren had been warned about the land's ownership. His own attorney had told him in writing that the property belonged to me, but he ignored it. That was the moment I knew we had them. They had acted in bad faith, and now we had proof. As the case moved forward, the pressure built. The HOA's argument crumbled under the weight of the evidence we presented. The parking lot, the benches, the trail, it all had to go. And when the court ruled in our favor, I felt a sense of justice. The park was removed, the land restored, and the HOA was forced to pay for the damages. The final twist came when the HOA was ordered to pay for the costs of restoring the land. The funds that had been used to build their park were now being used to undo the damage they had caused. It wasn't just about winning the case. It was about restoring what had been taken from me, the land, the history, and the rights of my family. In the end, the park was gone and the land was returned to its natural state. The gates on my dam still stood strong, just like they always had. But now every time I look at them, I can't help but feel a little more satisfied. Justice was served, and the land was mine once again. So what do you think? Do you think the HOA got what they deserved? What would you have done if it were your land? Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.